Hey, this is Seb from Tumbleweed Dealer, and you're listening to the Brutally Delicious Podcast.
One, two, three, four. The Brutally Delicious Podcast. The Brutally Delicious Podcast. The Brutally Delicious Podcast. The Brutally Delicious Podcast.
One of the things I like about doing this show is I've come across bands that I haven't heard of and, getting to do some new things. So I was not aware of you guys first time. And for those not familiar, then can you give us like the 2 sentence ballroom elevator pitch, whatever it is?
Tumbleweed Dealer started off as a little solo project of mine to merge stoner with Americana kind of vibes and a bit of post rock. Trying to look for maybe a more active Earth, the Bees Made, Honey and the Lion's Call kind of vibe, and evolved from there. And now on our new album, like it started to involve jazz, prog. It went from my solo project to my only project. So all the music I love is getting funneled into this one project.
How has Tumbleweed Dealer's sound evolved from the solo project origins that you were just talking about to the current trio format? And how is the evolution reflected in the upcoming album, Dark Green?
The trio has helped the evolution, but I wouldn't really say it's really why it happened. It was always me and a drummer. I don't play drums, so I always found a drummer to play on the album. I would write all the music before I do anything with the drummer. So it would always be, this is the music, let's add drums to it. And the third member of our trio, Jean-Baptiste, is like our studio guy / synth guy / effects guy. So he was always part of the project, but once again, I would bring him finished songs going, this is what we're recording.
Right.
Now I just decided to involve him earlier in the process, and same thing with the drummer. Instead of having a drummer who waits a few years and then I go, this is the album, let's add drums to it, I had a very involved, enthusiastic drummer that would help me compose. So we wrote the whole thing, everyone together, and we took a lot of decisions, everyone together. And I just kind of needed that to get out of some of just the habits I was stuck in. I felt like I didn't want to do another album that sounded the same. I really wanted to push myself, and I needed someone to actually push me.
Right. All right. Fair enough. Tumbleweed Dealer's music blends various genres from stoner rock to progressive elements. How do you balance those influences while maintaining the clear tumbleweed cohesive sort of sound?
Layers. That's how. Layers. I always say, like, oh, we're very influenced by this kind of music, this kind of music. And a lot of times people say, oh, I don't hear this kind of music. And I'm like, well, it's because it's just in the bass or it's just in the drums. So I don't want at any point the song to shift and you go, oh, this is a prog rock part. Oh, this is a no. You get some prog rock keys, but then you get some funky guitars over it, and then underneath that, the bass and the drums are doing a jazzy thing. So that's how we keep it, where it's never just a one thing. The influences are on different instruments. The project is really more about all the instruments working together than having that one lead instrument. Like the guitar is usually not the lead instrument. The bass or the keys will be the lead, and the rest just kind of works around it. Sometimes the guitar takes the spotlight, the bass takes a step back. Sometimes the drums are up front, they're doing everything, and we're just supporting his kick-ass beat. So because of that, it lets us sneak in all this stuff, because people are like, oh, well, I don't hear math rock. It's in the way I harmonize my guitars and I make them bounce off of each other. But the drums and the bass are not going to go full math rock at the same time. And you're like, what's this big shift? No, it's just subtle. So it's in the layers. It's hidden in there.
Wow, interesting. How come it took you over 8 years to write this? Are you just a perfectionist, or was it just life?
Life. I met a girl in a coffee shop. We hit it off, and a few months later, we were not careful, and now I've got a 9-year-old kid. So that was not part of the plan. I am so happy it happened, but it was not part of the plan, neither band-wise or life-wise. So everything took a step back.
Mm-hmm.
And once I got back into it, that's where I decided, like, if I'm going to do this, I'm going to do it properly. I'm going to do the album I wanted. Like, I see this. If you look at the vision I had when I did the first album, I was like, okay, I'm going to do one album like this, evolve a bit, evolve a bit, evolve a bit, evolve a bit. my plan was to do an album every year, every 2 years. So I'd be at album like 10 right now. So
Right.
when I went back to go to do album number 4, I'm like, well, the timeline should have me at album number 10, where everything kept it. Let's just get there. Let's just evolve to what album number 10 would have been. I don't want to do these steps no more. I had 8 years to grow as a musician, as a songwriter, and as a fan of music. So I've gotten into more kinds of music. So I didn't want to regress back to where I started writing this fourth album 8 years ago. I
Right.
wanted to be like, okay, let's bring it now, but I've got some stuff I wrote back then. Let's bring it here. So once again, layers. It was written. A lot of it was written 8 years ago. Then another batch. Then another batch. And every time it was a different musician, a different composer, a different person working on it.
Right. So was it difficult to do that then to make that?
It was difficult. It was difficult ego wise, honestly. It was mostly the fact that I made this big speech to these two people. I'm like, I'm going to bring you into the process earlier, and I want you guys to challenge me, and I want you guys to tell me when I'm just falling into the old patterns, and if I'm not, I'm just bring you a song and it just sounds like the same old thing. You tell me, and we scrapped that, and then they did, and it hurt. So it was difficult ego wise because I would show up with like a 5 minute song, and I'm like, this is the song. They're like, okay, this one part's really good. Everything else sounds like the last album. They're like, let's start with this part. I'm like, okay, it took me like 3 months to write. Okay, fine.
Right.
Then I come back. I'm like, I made a whole song around this one part, and they're like, okay, this and this is good. This meh, this meh. And I'm like, okay, so by the time we go, like, okay, we have a full song. I'm like, I wrote an album's worth of stuff for you guys. Quality control was strict, so it was hard ego wise. It was hard time wise, but every time, like, we would listen to the song and go, like, okay, yeah, it's what we needed to do. The quality control needed to be there. I needed to be pushed. I needed to be told, like, no, you're just falling into familiar patterns here. You wanted to push the envelope, come back with something else.
Is that why you call it your bucket list record then?
Yes, and also because we like at before the band would play live, so we would just focus on having a lot of guitars. I would use a looper, and the songs were made the same way I would write them. Would be how we play them live. So there'd be one guitar, then two guitar, then three, four, five, six, seven, eight guitars, and then maybe the last two stay, and the first six ones disappear. Then we build. So that way I could do it with a looper. When we walked into the studio and we started working, we decided, like, I don't want to play shows. I don't want to focus on being able to do it. I don't want to do the 17 guitars one at a time thing. So we threw out the idea of having to recreate this live. That opened the door to, like, okay, we can start and have three guitars that are different right away. Before I'd say, oh, I can't do that with the looper. We have to make them arrive one at a time.
Right.
And that opened the door to, like, okay, well, if we're not playing this live, why can't we have keyboards? Why can't we have trumpet? Why can't this part be a sax solo? And that's when it became a bucket list album. As soon as, like, we opened the door to one thing that wasn't part of how we used to do things, then it was like, well, there's this whole list of stuff I've always wanted to do that we could do. And we just kind of ended up not cramming them because we wanted to everything to be organic. Like, it had to fit. So there's still stuff on my bucket list I didn't get off the list. But anytime I'm like, this part needs something more, and I go like, Mellotron. I've always wanted to use a Mellotron. And then we're like, oh, let's add it here. And then some other parts like, this melody, it's okay, but something's missing. I'm like, let's play it on a trumpet. I freaking love trumpet. And that's how it started. That's why we called it a bucket list album, because it's all the stuff I've always wanted to do. And there's some stuff that I had in my brain when I was like 17, which is over 20 years ago.
Right.
And we're finally doing it now. So, but the bucket list still has some stuff. We didn't get everything out.
The album Dark Green draws inspiration from Alan Moore's reimagining of the Swamp Thing. How did
Yeah.
you translate that narrative into and themes into instrumental music? That's difficult, ain't it?
Yes and no, in the sense that it's a very inspiring comic book. It's a very deep, rich comic book. And I did not try to set a proper narrative where you can't go like, okay, track one is this, then this happened. It's not chronological in any way. it's inspired by the general vibe and themes of the comic book. So I just tried to capture that whole, like, it's first of all, it's Swamp Thing, so it's set in a swamp. Like I wanted that swampy vibe. Forever we would just call it the Dark Green album because we wanted the cover to be dark green. That's all I knew. I wanted a swamp or something, but it had to be dark green. And from calling it the Dark Green album, at some point we just said, let's just call it Dark Green. It fits. So the vibe was there, and just also the existential themes that are in that comic book. They're like they're so deep, and it was hard not to get inspired by that. So we were just aspiring for that kind of, it's swampy, but it's kind of dark, and like it's got a good southern vibe, but it's also loaded. So it wasn't really that hard because we weren't trying to tell the story. We were just trying to be inspired by the story.
Gotcha. Okay. So you mentioned you're not taking this live then at all? That's not
No,
even
not at all. It's even if we would have the musician, so a trumpet, we have guitars that switch tuning in the middle of the riff, capos that come on and off. We didn't use capos, so my synth guy would put his finger down while I'm tapping over here. And then I'm like, when I go this note, you have to take your finger off, and then I pull, and then you put it back down. So we're two guys operating a guitar. We're splitting it because the tuning changed. It's when we decided not to do it on stage, we went all in with that, and now it's impossible to go back.
Okay. So what's next for you guys then?
Hopefully something for physical release. We just wanted the album out there ASAP. We've been working on it forever. The second we had a mastered version, we're like, let's just dump it on the internet today. And then we hit up some marketing firms that are like, yeah, that's not the best strategy. Let's plan this out properly. I'm like, but I want to just drop it now. Come on. So we dropped it a few months later instead, which is last Friday. So there's no physical product. There's nothing. There's just Bandcamp and Spotify's to come at the end of the month. That's all there is. So hopefully now we can reach out to people and get vinyls and CDs and tapes and whatever format anyone wants it. We will get it done and we'll get it out to them.
All right. So that brings me to the last one, that any listeners here want to pick up the stream, the whatever, or how can they do that? Can you give us all your links?
Bandcamp. So it's just Tumbleweed Dealer 420 at bandcamp.com, or just Google us Tumbleweed Dealer Dark Green. You'll go to Bandcamp. Album's there. You can grab the album, and our first three are available for free. So new album, you purchase it, you also get albums number 1, 2, and 3 for free with it. So for $8, full discography, 4 albums. Can't beat that price.
Nice.
Like I said, if you guys want to go on a weird musical adventure that touches on a bunch of stuff, where some of it might seem weird to you, because I'm a weird guy with weird taste, but hopefully most of it kind of rings a bell with you, this is it. Come check out Dark Green.
Awesome. Have a good day, my friend. Take care.
Thanks for having me. Have a great day.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Hey everyone, this is Bjorn from Soulwork, and this is Brutally Delicious.
Hey there, heavy metal maniacs and kitchen crusaders. I'm Bruce Moore, the host of the Brutally Delicious podcast, where we whisk up a blend of metal and food to quench even the most discriminate tastes. Have you ever wondered what your favorite metal musician chows down on before they hit the stage to melt your face off? Well, look no further. Here at the Brutally Delicious podcast, we have cooking segments so brutal they'll make your oven want to headbang. From beefy, bodacious burgers to spicy, succulent salmon, to kickin' caliente cauliflower, and more. We mix metal and culinary creations, resulting in a feast for the senses.
But wait, there's more.
Hey, this is Michael Monroe. Brutally Delicious. Isn't that beautiful? See you down the road.
Each week, I meet with the mammoths of metal for interviews that are spicier than a Carolina Reaper. Get the latest on their upcoming shows, behind-the-scenes stories, and if we're lucky enough, maybe they'll share a secret family recipe or two with us. You'll also want to check out our weekly album and show reviews, where we dice, slice, and serve up our unique takes on the latest metal releases. So grab your leather apron, crank the volume to 11, and subscribe to the Brutally Delicious podcast on your favorite podcast platform. It's sure to be a hell of a time.
Oh, hey there. It's Tim from Protest the Hero. Now that you've seen my junk, I'm going to show you how to make a pizza. And you're watching Brutally Delicious.
What's up, everybody? Max Cavalera, Soulfly, and you listen to Brutally Delicious podcast. Stay metal, motherfuckers.